If you asked anyone in town, they'd say Simon Wallace had the perfect life. Not in a flashy way. There were no Rolex watches or viral yacht photos involved. No, Simon's life was neat, crisp, and curated like a well-folded shirt in a department store window. A steady job as a high school history teacher. A quaint little home with white shutters and a blooming garden. And, of course, the crown jewel, his wife, Elise. She was all charm and silk, the kind of woman who made strangers smile when she walked by. A fundraiser organizer by title, but more of a magician by nature. She could whip up a gala from a spreadsheet and make it look like Versailles. When people looked at them, they didn't see a couple, they saw a brand. Every Friday morning, Simon made the coffee. Elise picked the playlist. He packed her lunch. She reminded him to wear the blue tie, not the brown one, because the board meeting was at 3. They moved like a seasoned waltz, familiar, predictable, and comforting. Or at least it used to be. Simon's colleagues often asked him, "How do you two keep it so fresh?" He'd laugh, not because he had an answer, but because pretending to know felt easier than admitting he'd stopped asking the question. There was something about that Friday morning, though. The sunlight was too golden, the coffee too bitter, and Elise's goodbye kiss a second too short. Simon didn't notice it then, not really. But later, he'd replay it in his mind 1,000 times, the same way detectives rewatch grainy security footage for a shadow slipping by the edge of the frame. The first crack appeared over toast. "You're quiet this morning," she said, sipping tea with her phone face down beside her. Always face down. Simon stared a second too long at the phone. "Just tired," he replied. "Didn't sleep well." Truth was, he had slept fine. What disturbed him wasn't insomnia, it was the unfamiliarity in their silence. The way she didn't ask about his lesson plans, or even complain about the fundraiser committee's group chat drama. Just silence. He watched her as she stood and adjusted her blouse, black silk, tucked too precisely. Her heels clicked with purpose on the tile. "Big day?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Always," she said with a flash of a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She left before he could follow up, leaving behind her empty teacup, a trail of perfume, and a question mark that would linger long past lunch. It wasn't the first time Simon felt something off, but it was the first time he stopped pretending it wasn't there. Simon stared at the leftover tea in her cup long after Elise was gone. Lipstick smudge, half a fingerprint on the porcelain handle. Proof, he figured, that even ghosts leave fingerprints. And that's what she was starting to feel like, someone who haunted the same house but lived in a different dimension. He didn't jump to conclusions. That wasn't Simon's style. He was the slow burn type, the guy who highlighted books and rinsed out the sponge after washing dishes. He believed in logic and patience. But logic doesn't hold up well when your gut's screaming at you in the background. It started small. Her laughter changed. Used to be, Elise laughed with her whole body, loud, open, careless. Now it was tight, curated. The kind of laugh you give when you're trying to impress someone new, not reassure someone old. Her story started skipping. Simon used to get a blow-by-blow of her day, right down to who wore too much perfume or brought egg salad to the potluck again. But now? Just meetings and emails and ugh, you know how it is. He tried to shake the thought. Everyone has off weeks. Maybe she was tired. Maybe he was overthinking. People evolve. But phones don't just stay face down forever by accident. Calendars don't suddenly fill with vague appointments that don't match her usual rhythm. And then came the receipt. It was stuffed in the bottom of her gym bag, which she'd left in the laundry room. Simon reached in without thinking, just trying to see if her water bottle was leaking again. But instead, he pulled out a crumpled white slip that felt heavier than it should. 2 wine glasses. 1 entree. 1 dessert. A place called the Ivory Seed. Not a place they'd ever been. Not a name she ever mentioned. But definitely not a lunch with Karen from committee, who apparently was just helping with spreadsheets that day. He didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, he Googled the restaurant. Cozy, dim lighting, known for its discreet corner booths and romantic ambience, according to Yelp. It wasn't the price tag that bothered him, it was the intention behind it. Simon sat in the kitchen for over an hour that night, the receipt flattened in front of him like a confession. He folded it carefully and slipped it inside the back cover of a paperback novel on the shelf, like a bookmark in a story he hadn't decided how to finish. That night in bed, Elise curled away from him. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, like someone who had nothing to hide, or someone who'd practiced hiding it well. Simon stared at the ceiling and said out loud to the dark, "I think something's wrong." The room didn't answer. But the silence? It agreed. They say you don't hear glass break. You feel it first. That was Simon's third Saturday in September. The day the world didn't just crack. It caved. It started with Elise leaving her laptop open. Now, she was usually surgical about her digital trail. Phone locked, tabs cleared, browser history spotless. But that morning, she left in a rush for brunch with the girls, a phrase Simon was starting to associate with lies the same way smoke means fire. The laptop was open, screen glowing. Just one tab left behind. A folder labeled Catering Menu, September. Except the file underneath didn't say menu. It said, Tuscany Weekend, Photos. Simon's fingers hovered over the trackpad. Part of him wanted to walk away, hold on to the last shred of plausible deniability. But another part, the part that hadn't slept in 3 weeks, clicked. And there it was. Photo after photo. Elise on a villa balcony, wine in hand, wind in her hair. Elise with her sunglasses down, legs kicked up on a lounge chair. Elise in a flowing white dress, smiling at someone outside the frame. Until suddenly, the someone wasn't outside the frame anymore. There he was. In 4 photos. Then 10. Then 20. Same guy. Same smirk. Same arm draped around her waist like it belonged there. Simon didn't know him. At least not by name. But his face was familiar, like a background extra who's been appearing in your marriage for months, and you just never noticed. The same man Elise had once described as just a co-worker at some fundraiser event. The one who helped with logistics and always overshared. Simon zoomed in on one photo. There she was, leaning in, lips brushing the man's cheek. The kind of kiss that's rehearsed. Not a first kiss, not a maybe in us. Simon's hand went numb. His breath hitched, shallow and quiet like the air was afraid to touch him. He closed the laptop, slow, deliberate. No drama. No slamming. Just quiet. The kind of quiet right before a forest fire sweeps through the valley. He stood up, walked outside, stared at the rose bush they'd planted the day they moved in. She wanted roses. He wanted cacti. They compromised, like couples are supposed to. And now, looking at those perfect little blooms, all he could think was, she brought him to Tuscany. She gave him the vacation she said we couldn't afford. That wasn't just betrayal. That was performance. That was production. That was a weekend she chose to document. It wasn't a mistake. It was a memory. One he was never meant to see. And just like that, the house stopped feeling like home. More like a museum to someone else's story. Simon didn't rage. He didn't throw her laptop against the wall or scroll through every photo looking for more proof. Because the proof had already done its job. The curtain was down, and the show was over. Elise wasn't someone he could plead with or confront anymore. No, she was already in a different life. She'd just forgotten to tell him. By the time she came back from brunch, the laptop was closed, the house spotless, and Simon was calmly sipping iced tea on the back patio. Hey, you're out here, she said, stepping onto the deck, sunglasses still perched on her nose like a disguise. Want to hear what happened to Melissa's car? You won't believe it. Simon looked up. You went to Tuscany. The words landed like a plate dropped on marble, sharp, echoing, final. Her jaw twitched. A micro-expression. Most people wouldn't have caught it. But Simon wasn't most people anymore. Elise adjusted her sunglasses. What are you talking about? He tilted his head, almost amused. You labeled the folder wrong. Next time you cheat on your husband, maybe don't title it like a travel brochure. She paused. Didn't deny it. Didn't even ask how he saw it. Instead, she slowly lowered her sunglasses, revealing the eyes he used to trust. Okay, she said, cool as ever. Let's not do this on the patio. Simon took another sip. Why not? You've been airing things out in public for months. Let's keep the streak alive. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she closed them again. Smart. There was no angle to run here. No fundraiser to plan, no wine glass to hide behind. She finally asked, what do you want, Simon? Want? He smiled. Now that's a question. I think I want my time back. Maybe the last 3 years? 4 if we're including Tuscany. She crossed her arms, bracing for impact. It wasn't about you. That line. That golden, gaslight in a bottle line. Simon stood slowly and stepped toward her, calm and measured. Let me guess. You were feeling trapped. Stagnant. I didn't make you feel seen. You needed to rediscover yourself with a man who wears expensive cologne and has a portfolio of yacht photos on his dating profile. Her cheeks flushed, not guilt. Offense. That's not fair, she said tightly. No, Simon replied. But it's accurate. They stood in silence for a moment. Two people who used to share a bed now separated by an emotional fault line 1,000 miles wide. Finally, Elise softened her tone. Look, I know you're angry, Elle. I'm not angry, Simon interrupted. I'm awake. She blinked. That unnerved her. She expected the wounded husband. The tears. The begging. Maybe even a dramatic scene with broken glass and poetic last words. What she got was worse. What she got was calm. Simon stepped around her and walked back into the house. She followed, slowly. Where are you going? She asked. To cook dinner, he said simply, opening the fridge. Because I still have to eat. She stood at the counter, hesitant. So what now? Are you throwing me out? He pulled out vegetables, placed them calmly on the cutting board. No, not yet. I want you to stay. Her eyebrows lifted, wary. Why? Because I want to see how much you'll lie when you know I already know the truth. She didn't answer. Didn't have to. Simon chopped onions without flinching. We'll talk soon. But not today. Today, I want to enjoy the last dinner before the storm. Elise, he added, not looking up, you should be very careful about what you say next. Because from this point on, every word is evidence. Her mouth opened, closed, then finally gave up. She turned and left the kitchen. The moment she was gone, Simon set the knife down and leaned over the counter. His hands trembled, but not with fear. With clarity. He was a man who had spent years organizing spreadsheets, budgets, lesson plans, details. Now he was about to do the same with his betrayal. He went to the study, opened a fresh yellow legal pad, and wrote across the top in all caps. Phase 1. Inventory. Simon had always believed in structure. He was the guy who made packing lists for weekend trips and color-coded the calendar with anniversaries, dentist appointments, and trivia nights. Elise once teased that he organized emotions the way other people folded laundry. Now, he was going to use that gift for something else. He sat in his home office with the door cracked open, just enough to hear if Elise came near. The yellow legal pad in front of him had already gathered notes like a case file. Phase 1. Inventory. Beneath it, a list began to take shape, one that wasn't about groceries or chores, but something colder, cleaner. A full accounting of the world he thought he knew. 1. Tuscany weekend, photo evidence. 2. The Ivory Seed receipt, dining alone together. 3. Elise's laptop, login access, potential emails. 4. Financial records, joint accounts, Elise's spending spikes. 5. Shared passwords, still unchanged? Check again. 6. Emotional leverage, who still thinks we're happy? Who matters? This wasn't a plan to scream or cry or fall apart. No, Simon wasn't unraveling. He was documenting. Every lie had a paper trail. Every betrayal, a breadcrumb. She may have chosen romance over reality, but Simon? He chose strategy. He pulled up their joint bank account. There was a charge from 3 days ago, boutique flowers, not delivered to their home. He clicked it open, copied the address. Not Tuscany, not the office. A townhouse 2 zip codes over. Interesting. He scribbled it on the pad. 7. Townhouse address. Potential rendezvous point. Simon leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, heart oddly steady. He wasn't looking for confirmation anymore. That part was over. He wasn't even after justice, not in the courtroom sense. He was after narrative control. Elise had already rewritten their story without telling him. Simon planned to do what any good historian would do, reclaim the truth and publish the final chapter himself. The next morning, Elise behaved like nothing had changed. She kissed his cheek with that slightly too casual, "We're still fine" energy. It almost made him laugh. You heading in early? He asked, sipping his coffee. She nodded, toasting a slice of bread that would be left half-eaten on the counter like always. Yeah, early meeting with vendors. I might be home late. He smiled. That's okay. I've got some grading to catch up on. Good, she said. Don't wait for me. He wouldn't. He had other plans. As soon as she left, Simon pulled the flash drive from his desk drawer and backed up every photo, every email, and every file he had quietly collected. Then he printed duplicates just in case. He stored them in an envelope marked old tax docs and slipped them under the floorboard in the attic crawlspace. Elise hated the attic. She'd never find it. Next, phone records. Simon had access to the family phone plan. His name was still on the account. He logged in. Scrolling past months of texts and calls, he narrowed it down to an unsaved number with daily activity. He typed the number into a search engine. It was registered to a man named Milo Kensington. Oh, a name. He scrawled it across the yellow pad with quiet satisfaction. 8. Milo Kensington, lover, liar, tax-paying idiot. He printed Milo's LinkedIn page. The man was a luxury real estate developer with a taste for designer sneakers and motivational quotes about living authentically. Simon smirked. That explained the Escalade and the blazer with no socks. On a whim, Simon checked Milo's business website. It featured a smiling headshot and a mission statement that practically screamed, "Trust me with your millions." Then he clicked the contact page. There was an office address. 9. Office location, possible confrontation point. But not yet. That wasn't how this story would be told. Simon spent the afternoon doing something Elise hadn't done in a long time, talking to people who actually mattered. His sister, his best friend from grad school, her mother. Each conversation started the same way. "Hey, I just wanted to check in. Been a weird month." And then, once the dam cracked. "So, if Elise tells you something dramatic about me soon, just know I'm okay. And I'm staying calm." He didn't accuse. He didn't play victim. He just planted seeds. Let people know, subtly, that the calm man in the picture was about to get framed as the unstable one. The goal wasn't to drag Elise down. Not publicly. Not yet. It was to tilt the floor just enough that when she stepped forward with her new script, people would already be questioning the plot. That evening, Elise came home late, again. Hair freshly styled. Her perfume a little bolder than usual. She tossed her bag on the couch and sighed as if the day had been long and grueling. Simon was at the dining table, working on a crossword. She walked past him like he was wallpaper. "Dinner?" he asked lightly. "I'm not hungry," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Big meeting." She didn't look back. "Yeah, we'll see if it pays off." Simon smiled into his crossword. "Oh, it will. Just not how you expect." She disappeared into the shower. Steam filled the hallway. Simon stood, walked to the kitchen, and retrieved the receipt from the ivory seat. He placed it on the dining table next to her phone charger. Not aggressive, not obvious, just present. A bookmark in their silent story. When she came back out, she saw it. Her hand froze mid-reach. Simon didn't even look up. He just said, "They say dessert's good there. Shame you didn't bring me leftovers." She didn't answer. Not right away, but in that pause, less than a second, Simon felt it. The war had started, and he was already winning. Elise didn't mention the receipt. Not that night, not the next morning. She picked it up like it was a grocery list someone left behind, then folded it carefully and slid it into her purse. Simon had to respect the composure. It wasn't easy, carrying a lie with the elegance of someone balancing fine china. But Elise had always been gifted in the art of appearances. He just hadn't realized until now how much of their marriage had been stagecraft. It was Saturday when Simon made his first real move. "Hey," he said casually, leaning on the kitchen doorway while Elise scrolled on her phone. "I've been thinking. We haven't really taken any time just for us lately." Her thumb froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean a getaway. Just a weekend. Reset, you know." She narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "You want a couple's weekend now?" Simon smiled. "Why not? We deserve one." "Where?" "Oh, I don't know. Somewhere coastal. There's a cabin near Mendocino that's got this great view of the cliffs." The lie rolled off his tongue effortlessly. He wasn't booking a trip. He just wanted to see how she'd wriggle out of it. Elise gave a vague nod. "Let me check my schedule. I've got that charity auction coming up." He nodded back, pretending he didn't already know that the auction was a front for her next rendezvous with Milo Kensington, who, by the way, was at that townhouse Simon had flagged. Public records revealed Milo leased it 2 months ago. No roommates. Fully furnished. Conveniently located near Elise's meetings. Simon added the cabin to his list of ghosts. Another test. Another excuse Elise would have to invent. He didn't need to catch her in a lie. He just needed to catalog them. That same afternoon, he drove across town to a small strip mall that housed a dusty little notary's office and a family-run law firm. He didn't tell Elise. Just said he was meeting a former student for coffee. He walked out with 2 things. A copy of a temporary financial separation form. A legal consultation scheduled for Thursday at 11 a.m. The lawyer, a woman named Serena Alcott, had asked the right questions. "Do you have access to the financials? Has she made any large withdrawals lately? Do you believe the affair will become public?" Simon answered calmly. "She doesn't know I know. Yet. And I plan to keep it that way for now." Serena had raised an eyebrow. "You're remarkably composed." "I'm a history teacher," Simon had said. I've read enough about wars to know the ones won in silence last longest. Sunday morning came with sun and silence. Elise left early, claiming she was heading to the gym and then to brunch with her sister. Her sister, who had texted Simon the night before to ask if they could meet up next weekend. A detail Elise had either forgotten or didn't expect him to know. Simon waited 30 minutes after she left, then grabbed the spare keys from the ceramic bowl by the door. Elise's car had a dash cam. Not for safety, Simon had installed it himself 2 years ago after a string of local break-ins. She never remembered to turn it off. Back inside, he plugged the device into his laptop and clicked through the recordings. And there it was. The townhouse. Timestamped, logged, and framed perfectly in 1080p. Elise pulling into the driveway, fixing her hair in the mirror, stepping out with a carefully selected bottle of wine. She even checked her reflection in the car window before walking up to the door. Simon watched it like a nature documentary. A creature in its native habitat, unaware of the lens. He hit pause, took a screenshot, and filed it into his folder labeled Act 2, Evidence of Intent. He didn't hate her. That was the strangest part. Hate required energy. Simon wasn't interested in vengeance for the sake of fire. He wasn't a man who wanted to burn the house down. No. He was going to gut it quietly, leave the facade standing so that when Elise looked around one day and realized the walls were empty, the furniture gone, and the heat turned off, she'd understand. He wanted her to live in the ruins. That night, Elise came home late again. Simon was waiting on the couch, reading. She looked startled. Hey, you're still up. He glanced at the clock. You're home later than usual. Your sister keeping you out. She flinched. The slightest hitch in her step. Yeah, she just got out of a thing with her boyfriend. Lots of venting. Simon nodded and smiled. Hope you gave her good advice. Elise offered a stiff chuckle, then disappeared into the bathroom. Simon didn't follow. Didn't push. Just filed the lie next to the others. By the end of the night, Elise had curled up next to him like everything was fine. She placed her head on his chest, the way she used to when the world felt honest. Her breathing slowed, and within minutes, she was asleep. Simon stared at the ceiling and whispered to no one, "This is going to hurt." He didn't mean for him. He meant for her. On Monday, Simon began executing Phase 2, displacement. He opened a new checking account at a different bank, one she didn't know about. Quietly transferred half their joint funds. Not enough to raise alarm, but enough to insulate himself. He canceled the pre-approved credit cards in both their names and rerouted his direct deposit. He met with Serena Alcott again. She gave him a simple nod after reviewing everything he had brought. You've built a perfect case, she said. Clean. Documented. Unemotional. Simon exhaled. Good. I don't want to win a fight. I want to walk out while she's still rehearsing her first line. Serena smirked. You're doing more than walking. You're writing the final scene. That night, Simon told Elise he'd been invited to a teacher's retreat out of town. It's last minute, he lied. Thursday to Sunday. Should be good for networking. She smiled a little too quickly. Of course. You deserve it. He knew she was already rearranging her weekend. Let her. On Thursday morning, Simon packed a bag and drove 3 miles out of town. Not to a retreat, but to a small rental cabin with no neighbors, no traffic, and more importantly, no distractions. He set up his laptop on the pinewood table, opened 3 tabs. His bank. His email. A cloud folder labeled Final Draft. Inside the folder. Photos from Tuscany. Screenshots from the dashcam. Copies of the receipts. A full document, timestamped, with cross-references between her lies and real evidence. He had structured the file like a thesis. Introduction. Conflict. Evidence. Resolution. Then he did something Elise never would have expected. He wrote a letter. Not to her. Not even to Milo. To everyone. A single email, addressed BCC to her parents, her sisters, their friends, and her office manager. Nothing graphic. Nothing loud. Just a quiet statement of fact. Clear, concise, and devastating. I wanted you to hear it from me before it spirals. Elise has chosen another path. I've chosen peace. I wish her clarity and healing, but I won't be part of her story anymore. He attached a single PDF, the final draft, and hit send. It was done. Simon returned Sunday evening. Elise was waiting in the kitchen. No wine. No playlist. No charade. You told them, she said. Her voice was low, dry. I did. You embarrassed me. He raised an eyebrow. I told the truth. You embarrassed yourself. She scoffed. That's not how you handle problems in a marriage. Simon took a step closer. Calm. Cold. This hasn't been a marriage for months. You turned it into a secret stage play. I just pulled the curtain back. Elise's mask faltered. So what now? You want me gone? He shook his head. I don't want anything. I've already taken everything I need. The accounts are divided. The documents are filed. The lawyer will call you tomorrow. You're throwing this all away, she whispered. Simon paused, then leaned in. No, I'm letting it go. That's different. For the first time in their entire marriage, Elise didn't have a response. Just silence. 1 week later, the movers came. Elise was gone. The house echoed now, emptied of furniture, but finally full of honesty. Simon stood in the hallway with a box labeled Keeps. Inside were old photos, some books, and a few things that still mattered. He walked out to the porch with his mug of tea. No sugar this time. Just the way he liked it before she changed that too. His phone buzzed. A message from Serena. Divorce finalized. Full asset protection approved. No contest filed. Below it, one final line. You win. Simon looked at the house, his house now, and felt nothing. Not relief. Not victory. Just stillness. The kind that comes after the storm. The kind that lets you rebuild. He didn't post about it. Didn't change his relationship status. He just lived. Quietly. Deliberately. Authentically. And every now and then, when someone asked what happened between him and Elise, he'd smile gently and say, turns out, some houses are built on paper. Looks real. Holds shape. But the first sign of rain? It folds.